Hi everyone and welcome to this new video series on the Digitakt 2. In this video is going to be really just mainly focusing on the overview, what's new within the Digitakt, along with what this video series can hold and the way you can follow along with it. So my idea for this video series is basically I've made a sample pack, so you can download that. You just click on the link in the description below. Put that into your unit itself. You don't even have to have a Digitakt to use these samples. They're all in WAV format. They're all normalized to -6 dB, just so that we can utilize the mixer. Not that you need them to be at -6. It's just easy for me to explain and for you to follow through together. For me to do that. There's various samples in there, so kicks, snares, claps, hi-hats, effects, randomized effects, which we'll all look at in this video series. So the idea really is for you to follow along with it. So if there's something that you like in this video that you didn't know how to do, you've got the files there to do it yourself. Like if we create a sound, we can do it together rather than me just having it and that's it. You've got them sounds available to you then as well. The samples are handcrafted by myself, so I think I've done them all to so they're all in tune with each other basically, so they all should sound good together. But we can, even if they don't, we've got the tuning key on the Digitakt just to redo whatever we need to do with them and shape them to how we want them to sound. So for this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare the original Digitakt to this Digitakt. Look at the new menus, buttons, step sequencer lengths, that in this video, just this introductory video. I would recommend just watching this. I've put markers on down at the bottom so that you can quickly go to which part you're interested in. If you're not interested in any other part, that is, it's totally up to you. But this is going to extend us on from each video is going to extend on to the next video. So this one, for example, we will look at just obviously the front panel, the what's new within the Digitakt. Hopefully I'll try and keep them short. And then the next one we'll start a project. The next one after that we'll do drums and so forth and work through it to make a track from start to finish. I've also, for this video series, set up an Elektron sounds and preset booklet. So in this booklet, we'll look at various things. So one example is a tape style effects. So if we had a sample playing, I could basically show you on this preset booklet what settings I've done to make a certain effect. So one effect, for example, is the tape start effect, but in others we have like the broken cassette tape effect, we have the wow, the flutter, tape stop effect, rewind and fast forward, things like that. And also my settings that I like to use, to compress like maybe a kick, a snare, and then resample that. Also bus and sends effects, what I like settings to use on like my drums for basically the sends effects for the reverb. So that booklet will be available on the website. If you want to purchase that separately, that'd be amazing. But also there's other ways that you can support the channels if you choose to. So I've set up a Patreon page recently. And it's just got 4 tiers. It starts at $5 and it goes up to $25. So if you wanted to support the channel, you can do so by going to that Patreon page, and you can help support the channel that way. What that gives you as well is it unlocks all of the sample packs on my website. No matter what tier you choose, it unlocks all the tiers on the sample packs. I basically just want you to enjoy what I've created, and I hope they help you in your productions. What will be free if you sign up for the Patreon, you'll get a link and a code to use on the website. You can grab all the sample packs, all the large and bite-sized drum kits, the sampled instruments, the live racks, and obviously the Ableton Live Racks, and obviously the freebies that come anyway. The only thing that's separate to that is just my music. I just thought I'd keep that separate. But on there you can basically download everything if you wish to, and then use them for your own production. They're all royalty free, so there's absolutely no comebacks. Just obviously just use them for your own use. There's terms and conditions in there, but it's just like every other sample pack, to be honest. Just use them for your own use, but you can release them in like your music and your productions. So yeah, there's quite a few kits on there now, and I'm wanting to bring out a minimum of 2 a month. So that's a minimum of 2 a month. Last month I brought out, I think, the fresh kit and hybrid kit, but on there is all sorts of kit. We've got analog drums, we've got organic drums, there is click kits, there's bass sounds, and I'm wanting to basically do this more with what I have now, so that I can get more content on the website so that you can enjoy it more. But I can only do that really if the channel grows. So with that being said, I'm just going to dive into this video series, and we will take it from there. So starting on what's new in this device. So we've got 16 audio tracks and MIDI tracks on the Digitakt. On the original, we had 8 audio tracks across the top and 8 MIDI tracks across the bottom. Now you can pick and choose what you want. You could even have all of the MIDI tracks if you wanted to. Next up is the storage. So we've got 20GB storage on the Digitakt 2 and 1GB storage on the Digitakt. 400 megabytes of RAM and 64 megabytes on the original. 1024 samples you can load per project on this, and 128 samples per project on the original Digitakt. We still have the same amount of projects, so 128 projects on each device. We have 3 LFOs on the Digitakt 2, whereas the Digitakt we had 2. We have 2 LFOs per MIDI track, and we had 1 on the original. The record time on the Digitakt 2 is 66 seconds. That's the maximum record time. And on the Digitakt 1, it was 33 seconds. We have a 128 step sequencer. So we have 16 steps, times that by 8 pages, which is 128. On the original, along with the Syntakt and the Digitone, you have a 64 step sequencer. So we have 16 steps and we have 4 pages. On the original, we have 4 machines. They are one shot, warp, repitch, and grid. And on the new one, we have an added machine, which is stretch machine. On the original, we have filter wise, we have the low pass and high pass, the legacy low pass and high pass filter, which I'll call it now. And then we have a set EQ bell type. So we have 5 different EQ types, but they are set for like the Q setting. So EQ 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 1 being broad and 5 being narrow. Whereas on the new one, they've added 3 filters. The multi-mode filter, which you can go from low pass to band pass to high pass. LP4, which is like a low pass 48 dB per octave filter, so getting really tight sounds above your cutoff point. And then we have a comb filter as well, which can create some really wild effects. We have, obviously on this one, you can see the LED screen. That is white this time. Along the Digitakt, it is yellow. There's obviously, these seem to be more vibrant as well. It's just an aesthetic thing, just to make it a bit different from the original. We also have new layouts, new better management of your samples, new navigation features. We have an extra button on the top here, which is the effects button. So all the effects now are now housed within the effects. So we have the bitrate, overdrive, sample rate reduction, PR post filter, delay sends, reverb sends, and chorus sends. We can access the delay, reverb, and chorus sends by pressing function and then obviously you've got your function, what it's going to achieve underneath whatever page you press. So this is going to be function, and then press the effects. It's going to send us onto the send effects page. You can see we've got some dotted lines here on the bottom, so we can either get to them by pressing function and then toggling through each one, or we can press the up and down arrows if we wanted to and change the parameters within there. So there's an added chorus effect to this one, whereas on the Digitakt it was just delay and reverb. On the Digitone, I think that's got chorus, reverb and delay. You can route your compressor. You can route your tracks into your compressor via the new setup menu. You've got two different types, so you can control all config on configuration tracks, or you can use these tracks to push it into the compressor. So you can select a track which is routed to the compressor. So if you just wanted your drums, for example, and they were on, let's say, them, you could just have your drums routed to the compressor, and that'll be it. We can also do sidechain compression with the compressor, but we'll have a look at that a bit later on. We can also now go from -5 octaves all the way up to +5 octaves, which I think before it was, well, on the original it was -5 to +2. There's an added keyboard button that just takes you straight to your keyboard. You can press function and the keyboard to select a scale, select the keyboard fold on and off. That makes it obviously the Euclidean sequencer as well. So if you press function and then sequencer on the amp page, this takes us to the Euclidean page where you can turn it on and off, select what settings you want to do, and then you can come out of that and save that as an actual step sequencer step. The original obviously has the Overbridge and VST, and so does this one, but at this moment in time, from the date of this video, it isn't available yet, but I think it will be coming soon. So I will say that that is in place. So we'll move on to next to the overview of the front panel. What we will look at is just what each parameter does, what it does, and this will only be a quick sort of glance over. So on the first video series, I did a full overview of the panel of that, and if you want to go with that to that video, that obviously talks in depth about what each one does. The things that I'll do is I'll glance over this, but I will focus on what's new within the Digitakt 2 rather than saying the same stuff again, because what's been brought from the Digitakt has been brought into the Digitakt 2. So starting in the top corner, we have our master volume. Now this is the volume that goes out. This is how loud you hear it in your headphones and in your output here, which is located on the back. Next up is these 4 buttons here. We have a presetting kit. The settings button is here, or you can save a project quickly now by just pressing function and obviously that button. This is where you store all your projects, your songs, your patterns, MIDI configuration, audio routing. This is where all the settings are within the Digitakt. Samples now has a rework, so if we click on this, we've now got presented with this page. At the moment, this is basically, it goes obviously from main in left and right, and then it goes USB left and right, and then it goes all the way up to 16, and then it goes in left and right. I would like to see, because I would like to see you be able to record this in mono, because it's a mono and stereo device. It just records it in stereo at the moment. So if you have, let's say, an input just coming in from your left, it will be on the left. It will be on your left speaker. There's no way to put it into mono. I'm sure they'll sort that out though. So we have the same controls as before. We obviously have our input source select. We can press yes to start recording now. We can set the threshold. We can arm it by obviously toggling the threshold arm on and off. So if we have this, for example, if I just go into track 1, so if I set my threshold to there and I armed it, it will record until I bring it down to there. That way it's recording. Press yes to stop, and then that's what we've recorded. To delete it, we press function and no. We can set how we record it, so we can use a threshold, which is these two here. We have to arm it first and then set our threshold level, or we can use the play button to basically start recording. You obviously have to arm it again, so we can do that. So arm it to start it, and then the threshold to do that. We can just set that to the threshold as well. Our length, this is where we set how many lengths or how long the length is going to be. So these, when you're using steps, it is dependent on the tempo that you've set. So right now I'm at 120 BPM. If I turn this down, let's say to 70, and I go back to that, you'll see now 128 steps is 27.42 seconds. Whereas if I turn it back up to 120, it's gone up to 16 seconds. So 128 steps is going to be 16 seconds. So this is a good little calculator for you, actually, if you need to work out something within the LFO table, or you need something in a certain timing, because the LFO table as well, you'll notice that it is in numbers. That is per number, like whole number of them is per step. So when you see 4, it means 4 steps. When you see 2, it means 2 steps. 1 step. A 16th, it means 16th of a step. 128th of a step. So it's quite a good calculator for that. I usually just keep it on max and then stop and start it. But if I were recording a drum loop, let's say, and I wanted that over a bar, so 16 steps, I'd just do it like that. Or you could do it over 2 bars, 4 bars, or 8 bars. Monitor, you can monitor it in and out, but that only works on the input, left and right, so post mix or pre-mix, and that is your recorder page. You can also go into the samples by pressing function and then this. Now this is so much easier to manage whilst you're in the sample page, because you just click function and then that. So you can go to your drive now, and on your drive you've got all of your samples that you've got on here. You've got your recorded stuff, that's already there, and then you can also see how much you're actually using for your project. And you can see, if you click onto that, you can see all the samples that are loaded up within that project. Moving on to next is the tempo page. So this is where obviously tempo is. You can add swing, you can add your metronome, turn it on and off from here, time signature, your pre-roll, and then the volume of the metronome. You can all control by this page. Moving on to these 3 buttons, down here we have copy, clear and paste as the function, but then we have record, play and stop. So if I were to play the clip, it would just be play to stop. To go into the step sequencer, I would press the record button. This is where I can basically put in whatever I want to do. If I liked that, I could press function and copy. I could then clear that, and then I could then repaste that back in, so that it basically, you can copy and paste between like tracks, for example. So if I were on track 1 here and I want to go to track 4, or let's just pick a clear track, so track 15, and I put in paste, it will copy what was in that into track 15. We then have our 6 buttons across here. So we have a trigger page, our source page, a filter page. You'll see on the right hand side, if it's got a dot next to it, that means it's got more than 1 page. As amp page, as effects page, and then as mod page. We can also dive into sub menus that are within that by pressing function and then the button itself. You'll see below what they are. So we've got Quantise, the machine, the setup, sequencer, send effects, and then mixer. So if we went to mixer, we have 5 pages. We can toggle between these 5 pages by going down and up. And then on each page we have, on page 1 we have the compressor, page 2 we have the mixer 1 to 8, and then it's 9 to 16, and then on the 4th page we have our sends along with the master overdrive, and then we have on the 5th page we have our external mixer. So next up we'll have a look at these 2 buttons here, the yes and no buttons, or save and reload. What these do is they're basically your navigation for going forward and coming back. So in terms with that, these are more or less all in tune with each other. So if I go into my settings page, I can navigate by using these 2 buttons going up and down. If I want to go into a page, I press yes. If I want to come back out of a page, I press no, and then no again. That brings me back onto obviously what page I was on originally. We also have in these 2, we have function and trig modes. Now trigger modes, we'll have a look at this in another video, but quickly to brief over it, we can, for each track, we can select a trigger mode. So we have the tracks, which is what a normal state is. We can have velocity, where you can see the colours go from dim to all the way up to red. What this does and what this means is that this note here is a really low velocity, whereas this one is full velocity. So it's basically taking this value and it's segregating them over 16 steps. So if we go back onto trigger mode, we go to Re-Trigs. So these are the Re-Trigs. These are set sort of notes, set patterns. So you can do some nice stuff with that. And then the preset pool. The preset pool I won't talk about now because I will talk about that later. So I'll just go back to my tracks. Up here we have 8 encoders. There are fully turnable, so they don't stop. They are encoders. So each one of these basically relates to a parameter which is on the pin. They are also touch sensitive, so if you can push down on them as well. So if I were to turn this, let's say, all the way up, that controls the top left parameter on that page. If I press function, this does it to set values to whatever the parameter is. Some work, some don't. Like for example, tuning, you've got +12 every time, -12. And if you push down on it, it does whole numbers. So it goes from 1, it goes up in whole numbers. Whereas if you just turn it, that does point numbers as well. And that is for basically for each page. Each page allows something new where you can turn on and off stuff. So that's what the encoders are for. Moving on to these here, these are your step sequencer pages. So we have 16 steps per page. So this would equal 128 steps. So if I wanted to access more of these, all I would do is press function and then the page button below that, and then I would click on it again to add another page. We can do this per pattern or we can do it per track. So if you wanted to do some polyrhythm stuff, you do it per track, and to do that we would press function and yes. And what that does now is it segregates every track to have its own pattern, or page pattern, sequencer pattern. So this now, for example, has 32 steps. So on the track here, you can see this here. This one here, sorry, E. So we can pick how many steps we want to have within that track. This on the right here, sometimes what you do when you add a track, this will stay at the original, so this might stay at 16. What that will do is it'll just it'll go over the first bar. It won't go on to the next bar until you obviously put your pattern steps up to what you want it to be. So if one track has, let's say it's 32 steps in the track here, you would have to bring your pattern up to 32 steps in order to use them extra steps. We can also press this button for fills. So fills are something that we'll look at within the sequencer. The left and right arrows down here are the micro timing. So this is where you can select a track, and when you press on this button it brings up a micro timing table. This means you can shift that note off grid to however much you want, and you'll notice that by the number that is below. So we're minus 1/64th. If we go more left, we're going to be more bringing that note more budged over to the left, whereas if we move it right, we're budging it more over to the right. Using it on the grid, that is on the 16th note, whereas this is a 64th away from the 16th note. But that's a good tool just to get a bit of looseness into your mix instead of just going for the swing. And shuffling the 2, the 4, the 6 and the 8 that way to give it that swing. So that is what the micro timing does. The keyboard setup, we've briefly looked over this as well. If I just come off that, the keyboard turns on. Let's just go to track 9, this bass sound. So we have the keyboard, so this shows you the full keyboard. So we start off, this is a C note, so if I go onto the actual keyboard by pressing function and then the button, we will see that my root note is C. So that's going to be C, then I'll go to C sharp, D, D sharp, and so forth throughout the scale, all the way up to C. We can fold the keyboard onto itself, so we've just got basically a straight linear grid now for the whole scale, the chromatic scale. If we wanted to select a scale, we go onto the keyboard and then we can select whatever scale we want to select. Let's say major. So I'll just play the white notes. If we go C major, minor, sorry, if we go C minor, that'll play some black notes. And then because the keyboard fold is on, you can play that obviously just there like that. If it were off, it would show us where the notes are being played, which is a nice little touch. So if you wanted to do a chord, let's say, I like this mode for doing octaves, stuff like that, but I like this for me to really start to get into my chord progressions and stuff like that. So chord progressions meaning that there is a way around making chords up, but this is how I utilize it. But we'll look at that in another video. Moving on to these 3 buttons. Below that we have track, mute mode. So track is basically, you can select a track, or if we wanted to control a parameter for all the tracks, let's say we went into our effects and we wanted to add some beat crush to some bitrate reduction to the whole of our mix, all we would do is press track and then we would turn this up until it sounds right. That means all the tracks now are going to be relative to what we've just turned. So if we had a track 1, let's say that was on, let's say that's on 9, but I went on to this and then I turned that to 9, this now would be relative to what I've turned it. So now if I hold this down, you can see it's moved up to 4.95. It's not gone, it's not stopped at 9, it's relative. So if I were to do that again, if I were to bring that back to 9, you'll see that all these now should be on 16, or they should be off. And that's just a quick way of adding an effect or adding something to the overall mix. Moving below that, so we have the mute mode as well. We have 2 different mute modes. We have global mute and pattern mute. So global mutes are basically, if I just select all them, just a simple loop. So I could basically just mute a track whilst it's in. This is good for sort of live environments, live modes, when you need to quickly take all your drums out and then bring them back in. There is another thing as well that you can do. If you press function and then the actual button itself, you'll see it turns red. Now you've prepped these mutes now, so when you come up to your next bar and you lift off the function, it will mute them. And exactly the same if you're wanting to put them back on. So if I just press this, so I've got my hat, you'll see that now these are prepped, and then I can do the same here. And then that's the way you can basically bring stuff in and out with a flip of a finger. So if I did that and I want to cut everything, I'm waiting for the keyboardist to give me that signal or whatever it is, and then you can just bring it out. So that's a good tool to use. And then it's same on the pattern mutes as well. If you have patterns, this mutes each pattern. Exactly the same. So next up we have the bank and pattern button. So just to get us head around what's going on inside the Digitakt. So what we have the drive. That is like the SSD drive that's within this. That's the hard drive that's within this device. So everything is stored on that drive. So your samples, your kits, your presets, your projects, everything is stored there on that device. When you load up a project can have 16 songs. So when we enter songs, it can have 16 songs within the project. It can have 128 patterns, or one kit per pattern, and then the pool of samples you can use, it is 128 presets or 1024 samples. You can also have your MIDI tracks and your audio tracks as well. So that is per project. So for example, if I was to come to a gig and I set this up and I had more than 16 songs that I wanted to play, I would have to change my bank over. So to do that, I would press function and then bank. I would then select between 9 and 16 for whatever they were. So let's say my first 16 songs are on bank A. The next, let's say 16 songs are going to be on bank 10, which is going to be B. So I'll go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So then you'd organize it into banks. So if I clicked on a bank, I then I'm allowed 128 patterns within this bank. So that is accessed by 1 to 16 on bank A. So you've got bank B, C, D, E, F, G, and then H. So again, 128 patterns. So if I had 16 songs, I would have my first song on the first 8, second song, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so forth, all the way up to H. So if it came to the end of the song and I had 16 songs, which we'll look at next, I could then quickly access that through my patterns, because I'll know on bank A, 1 to 8 is my first song, 9 to 16 is my second song, and so forth and so forth. So I could do that live, or I could program them in automatically. So to do that, I'll just come out of that, and then we go on to song edit mode. I went in depth on this on the Digitakt one, so if you want to check that out, this is exactly the same. Probably better off doing that, because I'm not going to go as in depth here. So you basically, if I had my first song on the first 8 patterns, I could then program them in on this. So for example, if I just go into this and then I press yes, I can create a new chain, or I can do it from current chain, which is explained in the other video. So if I just did a new chain, it lights up all the presets that I have available. So let's say 1 to 8, they're all lit up, and that is my track, that's my intro, break, verse 1, verse 2, whatever. I could then type these in to what they are, press yes, and then that is now my song that has been created. To rename things in your track, we can use our left and right arrows, up and down. You'll also see that each pattern has its own tempo. We can change that if we wanted to. I'm just going to leave it the same. We can then set labels for each one. So then we had an intro, bridge, verse, chorus, and so forth and so forth. To delete a track, we just press function and no, or up, should I say. And then that's more or less it, really. And then to come out of song mode, we press pattern and then just select a pattern, and then we're back into our main pattern menu. So if we look at presets next, so what a preset is if I have this sound, for example, this kick sound, and I've shaped it into something that I like, so like I've added bit crush, overdrive, this, that and the other, I can save what is on these pages as a preset. What it'll do is it'll just collect all the information from all these pages that you've made to create that sound that you've done, and it will save it as a preset. So then you can put that into a pool, a preset pool, and then you can call them back to whenever you need to. So to access the preset themselves, what we're going to do is click on this button here, and you'll see it brings you up with a page, preset and kit. So right now we want to look at presets. So if we just move its arrows over, we can load a preset, save a preset, manage as presets, or look at the preset pool. So if we have a look at the preset pool on a default project, what we have is 128 slots, where we can select and pick and choose which presets we want to put in our pool. We can sort the preset pool out by alphabetical order as well if we choose to. So that is just preset pool. So then if we have a look at the manager page, where as presets are, we can store our presets in the preset manager. So as you can see, these are the default ones that come with Digitakt 2. And as we scroll down further, we have got slots there where we can save them ourselves. You'll notice arrows on the left and the right. So if we move the arrow to the left, this is where we can select things from different menus, like save here, select all, deselect all. And then we can put our own presets into the preset pool. So each bank on the preset manager has 256 slots. So you times that by your 8 banks, which is A to H. So 256 times 8 is 2048 slots. Obviously minus the default ones that you've got in. So you've got loads of options there to actually save your presets into the preset itself. So let's say I've got this kick. I've sorted out my settings or all my parameters, so that I like this kick, and I want to add this to my preset pool, which will now basically take all the settings that I've done and put them in the preset pool. All I need to do is press on this button here, go down to save, and then click an empty slot. I press yes, and then it says A132 preset 1. So I could basically use function and no to delete all that, or I can randomize the name for the preset itself by just pressing on the settings button. So I'm just going to find something. Let's just call it folded mood. Folded mood. So the next thing I want to do after finding my name is click yes, go and give it a tag, so it's a kick, and then save that. So that kick is now saved in the preset pool. So if I go back into the actual preset himself and manage, you should see that down here. As soon as I can get to it, you'll see that folded mood kick is now stored within my preset manager. So what's good for this is if I just do a couple more sounds, just save a couple more. So what I've done then is I've just created 3 presets and saved 3 presets that are within my project. So the kick, the clap, and obviously the hi-hat. So you'll notice as well that the one shot, when you press it, it actually tells you what the name of that preset is. So once you've saved your presets into the preset sort of hard drive itself, you can then bring them presets into a pool. So with a selected track, so let's say the costly increase is what I've done. If I click on the preset button, I will then go into the pool, go down to number 2, click on the right hand button, and then put save here. And what that's going to do is it's going to take that preset that I've done and that I've saved, and then that will put it inside the pool. So if I just do the same with the hat, if I press save to here, Overbridge cab, and then I have got 3 sounds in my preset pool. If I come back to the actual main page, and let's say I start up a new pattern now, so within this preset pool I have them 3 presets. I could then use one track, let's say this first track here, and then if I go into the actual trig mode and go to the preset pool, I can then see I have got 3 sounds within that preset pool, so I can play these live. Now what that's doing is it's basically acting, them 3 sounds are acting on the one track. Instead of it being over 3 tracks, 3 separate tracks, I'm using that preset pool over one track. So let's say I wanted to use this kick in the same track. I could then go into the sequencer, put my trigger down, click on that, and then go into my preset pool by this preset pool left, and then select a sound that I have saved in that preset pool. So now I've got my kick there. I could then copy that, paste, paste, paste. So I've just got a 4 on the floor sort of thing. If I just cut that down to one page, and then what I could do then is basically add another sound in there. So let's say on this 3, let's do the hat, and then we'll copy, paste, 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 and then utilizing both of them sounds in one track. Alternatively, what we could do with that is basically this track itself, we could basically go into that, and then we could change the sample itself to the kick, but that is only the sample itself. That is not the sound that you've created. So when you've done that, it's basically doing the sound and not your actual, it's doing the sample and not the actual sound itself. So like that, for example. So it's just picking up the sample, and it's not bringing the preset, you know, that you've created, the sound that you've created. Alternatively to that, if you didn't want to use the preset pool, you could basically resample the sound that you've created and then use that as you would normally. So for example, if on this down here I've got this kick, I could then just say, look, I wanted to resample that, and then save that as a actual sample, and then bring that into my sample itself, and then I could further more just mess about with the settings and stuff. So the preset pool is useful for, I would say, live environment stuff. If you've got multiple sounds and you only wanted to use it on one track, you could basically do that. You could also, it's good for just basically just playing about. It's good for loading samples and loading stuff from that you've done to make the sound itself into the actual sequencer. So let's just do this for example. So if I go onto this metronome and now go in a pre-rolling bar. Quantise, bit rubbish that, but so you could basically record stuff in from the sound from the presets that you've done into one actual track, and then this track then you could furthermore add stuff to it. So like for example this overdrive. Oh. So if you've taken basically a preset, you have taken in whatever you've done effects wise, and now you're adding even more effects to that actual track itself. So bit rate reduction. Which just gives you more options really to create the sound what it is that you're wanting to create. So that is the preset and the preset pools. To unload sounds from your preset pool, all we'll do is just click on that page, go back to pool, and then we would basically we could say delete. Yeah, we'll delete that one. Or we could go right and then go select all and then delete all, and then that way now basically our preset pool is now blank. Come out of that, and then we can go into the manager itself again. If I come down onto this, I could then basically delete these as well. So I could basically say, right, that kick, I want to delete that kick, so I'm just going to delete that. That's now deleted. Same with this one. And then same with this one. So that is how you save presets into the preset manager. You can load them into a preset pool where you can then bring them into your project and use all your presets within one track itself. You can then from that track furthermore shape the sound of what it is that you've done. So you could add a filter on there, you could have the overdrive and this, that and the other, and use that. So basically like I just did before with the kick and the snare, I could then add some more overdrive or some sample rate reduction or whatever it is that I choose to do with it. So that is a good little tool if you're wanting to get more flavour out of the sound that you've put in. So next we will have a look at kits. So with kits, what kits is basically, so if I have got my sound set up over these 16 tracks, so I've got these, for example, all them sounds, I want to save these sounds over these 16 audio tracks as a kit. So to do that, I click on this button here. I then click on save or go down to save. You'll see that some have already been saved as it is. So I'm just going to pick a new slot, A30 for example, click on yes, and I'm going to rename this as, just press this, the settings button to randomize. I'll just call it that for example. Press yes, and now that kit is saved into my kits. I could then go into manage, so if I wanted to load up a new kit, I could then say, right, I wanted that kit to be loaded, load to pattern. So then what that's doing then is it's getting all them presets and all that other stuff, and it's loading them sounds to this actual pattern itself that I'm on. So it's just a good way to pick and choose your kits or create new kits and then manage them better. So if I wanted to bring back in my kit that I've just saved, this one for example, I will just go yes, load to pattern, confirm the load. The kit is then loaded up, and then that is the kit that I've saved and also just reloaded into the project. Alternatively, a quicker way is just to press on the actual preset and kit button, click on load, make sure that the pattern that you're on is the one that you want it to go on, and then just basically go down to whatever it is that you want. You'll also see that it says at the top load kit to pattern number 9, so that you know where it's going. Say polar, you can also load it from there. Now that kit is loaded into pattern 9. So with the kit manager, you can save your kits into the kit manager itself. You can recall them at a later date if you wish to. The total number available is 1024 kits, so you can have 1024 kits, but you can only have one kit per pattern, which makes sense. So you can have 128 patterns per project, so a total of 128 kits you can have in one project at a time, which is just, it's a lot. So if you go back to that, that is how you use your kits. Quite simple to use. It would be good on the Digitakt transfer if you could take your kits that you've built up and export them, so that what you've done on here, you're basically just taking the sampled file. Even if it's a preset, it will load that into its own file itself. That would be good, because what you could do is you could take this away where you could just mangle the sounds together to create different kits, but then you've got that kit if you wanted to use it on something else, like for example in your DAW. Instead of using it in your Digitakt, you could bring them sounds out onto your DAW and use it in there to further manipulate it, use plugins on it, or whatever you want to do with it. So that is how you use the kits. You can load, save and manage them obviously there. To delete them, it's just exactly the same. Just use the arrow keys and select what it is that you want to do with that actual kit. Same with sorting them out and searching for kits as well. You can search for, if you've got a kit, for example, you can basically put in that and it will bring up the kits that have what you've inputted in. This is TE, so it has T together. So it's just a good way of quickly loading kits into an actual pattern. So the next thing I want to show you in the setup menu is how we can control individual tracks to control a parameter. For example, if I just go into a new pattern, which is this, I want to control. If I press, let's say for example, I press track and I turn this frequency knob down, what that's going to do is it's going to select all the tracks and it is going to move that filter frequency down the exact same for all tracks. So no matter what track I pick, you can see that obviously some are different because the original starting point of the frequency was different. So if these were all the same, let's say for example, if I just turn it all the way back up, you can see now they're all at the top. If I press track and then move the frequency down, you will see that now they're all the same, apart from that one because the resonator is up, but basically they're all the same. So that is how we control a parameter for all the tracks. If we only wanted a selected amount of tracks, what we have to do is go into the setup. So if we press function and then the filter page, the setup page, we want to go to control or config. Now what this does is it gives us a menu to select what tracks. So let's say our drums are on 1 to 8. I want to deselect all these bottom row, because this will be my bass, my loops, my whatnot, but all these on top of my my drums. And if I come out of that and I go to, let's say, bit crushing, I want to select track again, and then if I just move this down to, let's say, let's do it on the max, so 1. So all these will now be on 1, as you can see, but these will be unselected. So in this menu we can just select the tracks that we want to select by selecting the track button and moving a parameter. So that is a main overview of and what's new within the Digitakt 2. Next up, we're going to look at opening and setting up a new project, along with actually loading samples into our project and making a start on a brand new track that we're going to work through together. If you haven't already, you can download the sample pack in the description below. Just download the files. Even if you haven't got this, you can download the files. In the next episode, what we'll do is we will start a new project, name it, load the samples onto it, and then start off with the basis to make our track. And then so forth, we'll make drums, bass lines. We'll do a few tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.